All right, let's just jump right into it. Today's explainer is, well, it's a real mind bender. We're bridging the gap between science, human learning, and theology by unpacking this incredibly profound concept from our source text, the invariant order of reality. Basically, it's a journey that asks us to really look at how we know what we know and why the universe seems so perfectly primed for us to discover it.
The text kicks things off with this massive foundational mystery. Seriously, think about this for a second. Why is the world understandable at all? I mean, our universe isn't just some random soup of chaos. It's this highly ordered system where math actually works, biology makes logical sense, and where we, and even artificial intelligence, can actually learn. If the universe were truly random, learning would be literally impossible. And that brings us to this absolutely brilliant quote from Dorothy L. Sayers. She asks, "Isn't that the great defect of our education today, that we fail lamentably on the whole in teaching them how to think? They learn everything except the art of learning." So true, right? To actually master this art of learning, we first have to recognize that the universe operates on a fundamental pre-existing set of rules. We aren't making these rules up, we're just learning how to read them. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, why reality makes sense. Second, grammar and calibration. Third, the divine logos. Fourth, God knows science. And finally, the word bears fruit. All right, part one, why reality makes sense.
The source text uses this super relatable analogy here. Imagine walking into your kitchen and finding a bowl of cookie dough. You can't just confidently declare that it's tomato soup because you feel strongly about it. I mean, no matter how passionately you argue with the bowl, reality has already made certain decisions before you even walked into the room. It's like how Legos don't randomly change shape while you're trying to build a castle. We don't invent the truth of reality, guys. We discover it. The rules, they were already there.
Moving right along to part two, grammar and calibration.
So, first up, we have this concept of grammar. Now, the text isn't just talking about punctuation or, avoiding dangling participles. Grammar here means the invariant relational order of things. Think of a melody. You can play a tune on a piano, strum it on a guitar, or even just hum it. The instrument changes, sure, the sound changes, but the melody itself remains totally recognizable. Why? Because the stable relationships between those notes are preserved. That underlying relationship, that's the grammar.
Next is calibration. This is essentially the historical process of becoming more faithful to reality. It's literally how we learn. We make a measurement or a judgment, we compare it against reality, we inevitably realize we made a mistake, and then we fix it. But crucially, and this is the important part, we preserve that correction so we don't have to start from square one tomorrow.
To really get this, let's contrast it with alignment. There's a big difference between simply being aligned and being truly calibrated. Alignment is just matching a target. Imagine a broken bathroom scale that insists everyone who steps on it weighs exactly 12 pounds. It might be perfectly aligned to its internal target, but it is terribly calibrated to reality. Highly flattering for sure, but still totally wrong. Calibration requires a genuine standard that can push back and say, "Nope, try again."
The text breaks this down into this dynamic, repeating cycle of learning. Step 1, reception, we encounter some new information. Step 2, comparison, we check it against reality. Step 3, correction, we fix whatever errors we made. And step 4, preservation, we carry that newly corrected state forward. So true knowledge isn't just about memorizing static facts, right? It's an active historical process where we preserve the corrections of the past.
Which brings us to part three, the divine logos.
It's fascinating how the architecture of a classic church visually signals this Christian theological view we're exploring. The towering structure, the intricate stained glass, the perfect symmetry. It all points to this fundamental idea that creation isn't just some cosmic accident. It actually possesses a genuine, pre-existing intelligibility. It is designed to be known.
The text traces this exact idea back to the Gospel of John, which introduces this profound concept of the logos, or the word. The core theological claim here is that reality is completely understandable precisely because it was spoken into an ordered existence by a creator. The logos isn't just another word in a dictionary. According to the text, it is the fundamental reason there is a dictionary, an ordered universe at all. Okay, let's shift gears to part 4, God knows science. The source text offers this really wonderful treehouse analogy here that I love. When scientists discover something amazing, it's kind of like a kid finding a hidden room in a treehouse that their dad built. The kid is absolutely thrilled to discover it, of course, but Dad isn't surprised in the slightest. He already knew it was there because he built the whole thing.
In his view, science isn't about inventing reality. It's about uncovering the hidden rooms of a creation that was already fully known by its author.
Take the brilliant physicist James Clerk Maxwell, for example. We can compare his famous equations to a recipe. Now, the recipe isn't the actual plate of chocolate chip cookies. Maxwell's equations didn't magically create electricity or magnetism. The math simply describes an electromagnetic reality that was, well, already baking in the oven of the universe long before he came along.
When we look at Maxwell's massive achievements, we see that he unified electricity, magnetism, and light into one coherent system. But again, he didn't invent these physical laws. Instead, he calibrated his understanding to them so perfectly and expressed them so accurately mathematically that future generations, that's us, get to inherit his grammar. We don't have to start over from scratch. We just build on his preserved corrections. A real game changer.
And finally, part 5. The word bears fruit.
The source text brings in the prophet Isaiah's analogy here, which is really evocative. Isaiah compares the word of God to rain falling from the sky or, planting tomato seeds. Truth isn't just passive data floating around in the clouds somewhere. It actually enters reality, it interacts with the dirt, it grows roots, and it fundamentally changes things. It brings life.
We can trace the dynamic trajectory of this transmission in 4 precise steps. First, the truth is sent from the source. Second, it's received in history by finite minds. Third, it transforms the receiver because, let's face it, true learning actually changes you. And fourth, it returns, having accomplished its purpose. It never just goes on a pointless road trip. It always bears fruit.
So how does this transmission actually happen across generations? Well, through media, and I mean that in the broadest sense, ranging from ancient family storytelling and oral traditions to written texts and printing presses, all the way up to modern digital networks, and yes, even artificial intelligence. These are all just historical mechanisms that we use to reconstruct, teach, and disseminate this exact same underlying invariant order.
This master infographic brilliantly summarizes our entire journey today. Notice how science, mathematics, music, education, and theology, they aren't totally disconnected, competing subjects. Not at all. The source argues they are all distinct participations in one single intelligible order. The vocabulary might change depending on whether you're standing in a science lab or sitting in a church pew, but the underlying grammar remains exactly the same.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. The universe is ordered, it's intelligible, and it's practically begging to be understood. You don't have to invent the truth, you just have to calibrate yourself to it. So, what part of God's grammar will you learn to read today?